G'day, welcome to Any Auto TV. Today, as you can see, we've got the Lancer Evolution 10 MR. This is the pinnacle of the development of the Evos throughout the years. The best that Mitsubishi can produce in this vehicle. Costs about $72,000. And what does that buy you? It buys you years of development in performance motoring. It buys you an enormous amount of street cred because these things are just unbelievable in terms of the cult following they have from legions of fans around the world. And as we found out as we were driving around, it buys you a lot of interest from drivers such as BMW M3s and AMGs. They want to race. They come up and sit next to you and they're revving their engines and they want to take off and race these things. So it certainly buys you an awful lot of noticeability, I guess you'd call it. But the thing with these sort of cars is that you drive them 95% of the time around the streets at somewhere between 0 and 60 kilometres an hour, and most times about 50 kilometres an hour. And while it's all very well to have that sort of performance to be able to drive on a long freeway or on a racetrack, what do they like to drive on a normal day-by-day basis? Is the 95% of mundane driving worth the 5% where you're actually pursuing the excellence that these vehicles can give you? That's what we're going to find out, so come and join us. Okay then, a couple of details about the Lancer Evo 10. This particular model is about $72,000. Some of the technical bits that people seem to salivate over. It's got a 217 kilowatt motor peaking at 6,500 revs and 366 newton meters of torque peaking at 3,500 revs. So plenty of power, plenty of torque. It also has a twin clutch sport shift transmission with a wet multi-plate clutch. What that means is you can swap between sport and normal transmission modes, and it makes a significant difference really, where it'll smoothly change up through the gears in normal mode. In sport it'll hang on wanting you to hit the pedal and take off. It has relatively small fuel tank. That's not one of the things that people salivate over, but a 50 litre fuel tank, which means that if you really hit the pedal in this car, you're going to be driving from petrol station to petrol station, but that's okay. Outside and suspension, it's got Bilstein suspension. It's got 245 40 series 18-inch tyres that really grip. It's got on the front 350mm Brembo bladed brakes. So what all that means is it goes fast, it handles well, and it stops fast. I think if you really put that into a feel, you could probably call this car a go-kart, a four-person go-kart, because it really does handle like it's on rails. The downside of that, of course, is that you can feel every bump and hole in the road. Some of the creature comforts that are inside the Lancer Evo 10, it does have the Mitsubishi multi-communication system that also has the premium Rockford Fosgate stereo system with a thumping subwoofer in the back, which is exactly what you need in this car. You have to have that bass beating out as you're sitting at traffic lights. There's room for 4 people, but realistically the front seats, Recaro seats, while they're comfortable, there's absolutely minimal adjustment. It's take it or leave it type stuff. You can adjust the backrest a bit and you can slide the seat forward or back, and that's it. So if you fit the sort of middle criteria, great. If you're a bit too short or a bit too tall, then you've got a problem. Particularly in light of the fact that the steering wheel is only height adjustable and not reach adjustable. But having said that, you can find a fairly comfortable, snug driving position easily. The steering wheel itself is great. It's got the sport shift paddles. It's got all the controls that you need on the steering wheel itself. It's got the Bluetooth, which is a great feature. Feels great in your hand. Very few turns lock to lock. It all goes to enhance the sports car image. Like all of these cars, what it actually feels like compared to what the specifications are two totally different things. And to be honest, this car feels great. You know that if you put your foot down, it is going to go off like a cat that's been shot in the arse. It will just take off. And yet, in normal transmission mode, it will potter along relatively happily in that 0 to 50, 0 to 60 type category around the suburbs. Again, it's that 95%, 5% mix that says I have to drive it for 95% of the time at nowhere near its potential for just the sheer pleasure of driving at 5% of its time at its potential. And I think if you talk about that, the potential of this vehicle, its performance and handling characteristics are way beyond what almost all normal drivers have as their capabilities. You would get yourself in a lot of trouble trying to find the vehicle's limits. Like all the cars of this ilk, performance and that power to weight ratio is the key. One of the things that Mitsubishi have done with the Evo is it has aluminium front fenders, roof, front bonnet and rear boot lid as well. And that all just helps take a fair bit of weight out of the vehicle. One of the key features of this TCSST, which is the twin clutch sport shift transmission, is the fact that put it in sport and it keeps you absolutely in the rev bands all the time, ready just to take off at a moment's notice. So what have we got? We've got a 4-seat go-kart here. This thing is an absolute performance dynamo. The question is, would you spend $70,000 on a car like this if it was your only car? Is the pleasure of that 5% worth the 95%? And I guess for the most part, I mean, I can't answer that for myself. I would love to have one sitting in the garage, but then I've got a whole list of cars I'd want to have sitting in the garage. I think the thing is, it just goes to show that buying a car is an emotive thing. People buy it for all sorts of reasons that are absolutely logical and rational to themselves and may appear totally irrational to other people. And yet, cars like this, that realistically you cannot use in normal street driving, sell in bucket loads. So, and there's a good reason for it. It's a great car. Well, there we have the Lancer Evo 10 MR. And as you can see, it absolutely goes like a scalded cat. But as you can see, you get the best of both worlds. By flicking the transmission through to normal as opposed to sports, it will happily buzz around the streets at 50 or 60 k's an hour. You can fit 4 people in. Whether you're going to pay $70,000 for that 5% of the time when it's just pure bliss, only you as the buyer can decide that. But until then, it remains a cult figure. It has done nothing to ruin that reputation at all. In fact, it has enhanced it dramatically. This is a significantly better car than the Evo 9. And I'm sure that Mitsubishi around the world will sell heaps of them, simply because it is an Evo and for what it does and what it stands for. Well, that's it for Any Auto TV. We'll see you next time.